You know, they got the little funny foot pads that just create grip on anything.
That's a great
you know,
answer.
and if you're a bike rider, then you know you're pretty much always searching for grip, aren't you? I don't know what age, but yeah, whenever you sort of got your bike and then we were off riding to school and then you got your independence, you know. I reckon at the peak of it, but that's only because that's how we remember things, don't we? Wasn't the years that you and I were there? They must have been the golden years, right? Yeah. But JT's was definitely like, you know, Travie was a bit of a visionary there, like trying to take the bike shop and turn it into more than just the grubby little corner bike shop. You know, it was a huge facility. We had a lot of product. We had hundreds of bikes on the floor. You know, he started that cafe next door where we had crazy Alex making coffee. He's like, you know, you think to yourself, oh, wow, it's going to be a long road. You know, I've got kids forever, right? And then suddenly they're 18 and you're standing looking backwards and going, oh, fuck, where did that go? I was always drawn to like energy efficiency.
Oh, hang on. I'll just take a minute to stop. Think of 500 litres
per hour.
For one truck.
For one truck.
One vehicle.
Yeah. You know, like we put on amazing events, you know, and I'm not saying that I don't, but it's an incredible like group of volunteers and other mums and dads that are like passionate about downhill racing and seeing kids have a good time and get to experience awesome events and go. Like people would know, Inside Line puts on the sickest events, you know. Because it's our 30 years, we're going to have a 30th kind of birthday party and might even be a little volatile jump happening, you know. We'll see what happens. Kind of remember what makes you happy, you know. Figure out, and hopefully by now we've figured out what makes us happy. Some people, you know, like us, it's get on two wheels and just feel the flow of a bike around trails. I think it's really important to understand that at the core of all the other temporary bullshit that's in your life is to get back to like what actually makes you you know, content and happy, and then just make sure you get back to that every now and then.
The board here, that's for you.
Oh, you want me to start it?
Yeah, you start that. Click it to the camera. Off you go.
All right, let's get going. We're on, Zol. Hang on, we're going to crack the beer.
All right, do that.
All right. There we go. Friday beer.
Today in the studio we got Jamie Foale, a good mate of mine I've known for a long time through the bike industry. Currently the president of the Inside Line Mountain Bike Club. Jamie Foale, welcome.
G'day, Zol. Good to see you again. I know we probably don't get to hang out as much these days, you know, a lot of work and other bits of life get in the way, but yeah.
Here we are.
Been mates for, probably 20 years?
It's been a while. Now, I'm starting this with the same question for everyone.
Yeah.
If you could be an animal, what animal would you be and why?
Oh. I don't know. It's a good question, isn't it? I think depends what you wanted to do, but like you have to appreciate like the amount of grip that geckos have got, you know? They got the little funny foot pads that just create grip on anything.
That's a great
you know,
answer.
and if you're a bike rider, then you know you're pretty much always searching for grip, aren't you? You're always running out of grip.
That's a great answer. Yeah, I don't know. I'm asking the same people. I don't know
how long geckos. I don't know how long geckos live for though, so it might be short and sweet.
No, that's brilliant. Good. I like it. All right. Let me set my timer here. So start us from the beginning. Tell us in your younger days. Tell us about you growing up. You're about to start primary school. You're still in primary school. Tell us about your life, your family, where you lived.
Yeah, we lived out in the northeastern suburbs, out in Hope Valley. Actually, as it turns out, not far off where Marsha used to live, but I didn't know him back then. Yeah, just pretty normal family life, you know. Mum and dad, BMX, you know, bit of fishing here and there, but kind of nothing really remarkable.
And what about school? Tell us about your school life. Put your head back into.
Oh, geez.
I'm going to school now. You're not grown up yet. You're a schoolboy. Tell us about what was school like as a young kid.
Oh God, school. I mean, you just went and kind of got through each day, didn't you? Had a bit of fun. Tried to keep out of trouble, and just went to the local primary school out there up in Highbury. and rode to school. And I don't know what age, but yeah, whenever you sort of got your bike, and then we were off riding to school, and then you got your independence, and then you were doing stuff after school with your mates, and down at the little empty block somewhere, digging a shitty little jump and jumping it with no helmet, and not anyone had helmets back then, and just having fun.
So bikes were your sport in school? Did you play other sport, or what was?
I did a little bit of sport. Everyone does a bit of school sport. I tried my hand at footy. Wasn't really a big footy player. Played a bit of cricket, bit of this and that, but never really enjoyed or took to any of those kind of regular school sports. And biking wasn't a big thing. We didn't BMX. We didn't do anything formal, but we all had the little Kmart BMXs and used to rip around down the local park and just have fun.
And what about mum? You got siblings, mum, dad? Tell us a bit about them.
Yeah, mum and dad are thankfully still around. They live near me, which is pretty cool these days because they've been super involved with my kids, which has been really nice. My kids have had a good Nana and Grandpa experience, got one brother lives down in Fulham. He's been in and out of bikes a little bit as well in his life, but pretty kind of normal family life in that sense.
And what was your young life? What was family life? What was Christmas times like in your family? There you go.
Oh, geez, we had a pretty big family. And so Christmas gatherings were pretty big. There's like 5 or 6 aunties and uncles and 15 or so cousins, like first cousins. And so, those sort of big family gatherings were a lot of fun. A lot of cousins your age, and we just to rip around, play a bit of sport and push the little go-karts and do whatever.
Having fun,
yeah.
Senior school. How did your final years, how did your senior school years go?
Senior school was what it was. There was a lot of learning there, I went to a school in town, so I wasn't really around the area I grew up in, wasn't sort of near my mates, that sort of thing. Tried a few different sports there as well, played a bit of squash, which I didn't mind. But in senior school, I think we kind of did our own thing a bit because I think by then, probably by about year 9 or something like that, we started to get into a few motos. We'd sort of had little crappy little dirt bikes when we were, maybe 10 or 11 or 12 or something like that. And I think when we got into high school, my brother and I, we're lucky enough that we got some proper dirt bikes and joined a club and started doing a few events, that sort of thing. So I think, we didn't really do a lot of school sports. We sort of, tried to get into the dirt bikes as much as we could. And that's probably where, for me, really that's where two wheels took off. Really that's where I started to, really realise like, oh, this is heaps of fun. This is for me for sure.
And what form was those two wheels? What was your favourite form of those two wheels?
Well, we had little motocross bikes. We weren't winning races or anything. We were just having fun. We used to race out in Tea Tree Gully, which was either 40 degrees in a dust bowl or freezing cold and brown ice. A little bit like Fox Creek. But had a good time with those club members and I remember through those years we went to a couple of nationals, did some interstate races, that sort of thing. My dad was involved in the club. He helped out a lot. Had a couple of different positions over the years.
And what club was that?
Tea Tree Gully. It was so they had like the senior motocross division or whatever, and then the juniors. So this, they were all the ages were I think maybe under 16 or something. I don't know, but we're just in that junior motocross club for a few years, and that kind of went through most of high school and then into uni for me, and it sort of ended partway through uni.
How old were you at that stage?
I would say probably 17 or 18 or something like that was when I stopped. Sort of second year uni or first year uni, I think I snapped my femur pretty badly, so that sort of put us out for 6 or 8 months, and when I came back, I was just more probably deeply into the uni work, and I don't think I was quite as committed, and probably a bit terrified of hurting myself again. So yeah, it sort of waned away.
Uni, what was that?
Oh, I did mechanical engineering. Took my time, kind of mucked around a fair bit, and took some time off, and had a bit of a break from the degree, and figured out, is that really what I want to do? What do I want to do, with my life and job? Took some time off, moved to Queensland in the middle of that, drove around Australia in my old Falcon. That was a really good time. And then I was like 3/4 of the way through it, so I thought I might as well come back and finish it off and just see what happens.
How many years was that in total?
I think it's meant to be 4, but I think it took me 6 or 7.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're in Australia, you're still just in Australia?
Yeah.
At that stage? Yep.
Yeah, that was in the early to mid 90s I was at uni, so I think I took 94 or 95 off and travelled around Australia in my old XD. Did about 30,000 Ks, slept in the back of the car or in a tent the whole time. So that was like an amazing experience, for a young bloke to actually get to see the country. And I'm super thankful that I took that time off and actually got to see the place,
Was that by yourself? Was that with mates?
I think I left with a mate and a girlfriend when we left Adelaide. And then, whatever, we all parted company in different times. People went their own ways, and then just ended up starting that trip back to Adelaide from Queensland, just with a bunch of backpackers that I had met, and similar thing, some dropped in, some dropped out, and we met lots of people on the way. But in the end, I think I had a couple of people in the car from Queensland that came all the way back to Adelaide.
So you've got back to Adelaide, late 90s, and then what did you do?
Then I, because there was no dirt bikes there anymore, and I still, my cycling at that point was I used to ride to uni, that was it. Never really ridden off-road. And had saved up a bit of money when I was in Queensland just working in hospitality, and I always wanted to go motorcycle road racing. There was just something about that, that speed and the closeness of racing, that shoulder-to-shoulder type racing that I was just dead keen to have a go. And I'd had a little road bike just to get to uni, a little commuter. Got into that for a few years, and that was amazing, like super expensive. I blew a lot of money, but it was such a good experience. Again, sort of travelled all around the southeast of Australia. Did a lot of races at Phillip Island and here at Malala and in Adelaide.
Go into a bit more detail about what I'm not familiar with bikes, but tell us what sort of bikes you're riding.
What I was really attracted to, because there was one, with any motorsport, like you got money, you go better, right? That's just how it is. But I was really attracted to this what was called the production class, and basically whatever bike you had pretty much had to be as it was sold. You couldn't spend thousands and thousands of dollars on it. You pretty much had to just run it as you brung it, And that was good, because I always thought, okay, well then if people are beating me, that's because they're beating me, And if I'm beating someone, then that's because I'm beating him, not because someone's got more money to pour into it. And I kind of liked that kind of, equal standing of that. That was super fun. I had a 2-stroke 250cc Suzuki RGV, which, a lot of lads back then had on the road. And, it was, it was still a bit of a weapon. It still did like 240 Ks an hour, that sort of thing. Just very similar stories to all the going to races in a van, just getting some guys in Adelaide, chuck your bikes in the van, go camping at some track somewhere and race all weekend and, have a party and drive home the next morning, So sort of sounds familiar, doesn't it?
So that was the start of then that carried into mountain biking.
Oh, maybe a little bit, yeah. That's how I got into mountain biking, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, because a lot of the guys had dirt bikes as well for training and just for bike handling and that sort of thing. But I didn't really have the money for that. And a couple of guys were like, oh, just get a mountain bike and just get out and start doing some mountain biking. And there was a guy who used to make my fiberglass back then, and he was quite into mountain biking. So he got me out once or twice, started to do a bit of cross training, and then realised like, hey, this is a lot of fun. I'd never really been on those sort of trails outside of just riding to school or doing some training. And for me, it was really like, wow, it's a bit like the moto riding, the dirt biking, not as fast as the road biking, but a bit more affordable. So when the road biking ended, I ended up just getting a bit of a cheap mountain bike, and that was about the late 90s, maybe 97, 98, something like that. Bought my first ever mountain bike from, some kid called Ben Whitlock who worked at that bike shop in Broadview. I can't remember the name of it now, but
Broadview Cycles.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I didn't know Ben then. I just was out there buying a bike and got talked into some bike. It was just a cheap hardtail, but totally loved it. Yeah, really loved it. Sort of never looked back.
And how old do you reckon you are at that stage?
Oh, geez. Maybe just over 20?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Early 20s, you fell into mountain biking, and then was it for fun? Did you get into competition?
No, I never did any of that. It was just for fun. At that point, I was still, it was something to train, it was a different training tool to keep fit, and just, different bike skills when I was motorbike road racing. And then I sort of took a big break. That took me up until about 97 or 8 or something like that. And I'd never been to any races. I didn't know any of you guys, hadn't really seen the scene took off. I went and watched one dual slalom that Angus and Fitzy put on out at Gawler. Yeah, and that was like my only time I'd ever seen an off-road event. Went out there with the mate that had built the fiberglass for my road bike, which he was into it. So I went and checked that out. Thought, this looks pretty cool. But then I moved overseas for 5 years. Just the circumstances. I'd sort of had a gut full of Adelaide, to be honest, and just ended up going travelling. Didn't really have a plan. Just took off with a one-way ticket, and ended up overseas for 5 years.
Cool. Going to tell us more. Where did you got one-way ticket? Where did you first land?
I started off. We used to do a bit of water skiing as a teenager, so I got this. A lot of kids go over and do like these summer camps in the US where they send all their kids for the holidays. And got a job there teaching water skiing. And that was a heap of fun. Just, met a bunch of other young people my age, partied a bit, taught the young kids how to water ski. So that was good fun. And then ended up after that. So that was in the States, and then ended up buying this old, wood panelled station wagon, the full Chevy Chase, old Chevy type thing, and took that into Canada, and then ended up hanging out there for nearly 2 years. Had a work visa, did some cashies for a year or so. But yeah, mostly I wanted to go and snowboard. So I wanted to, check out the snow. Had never been in Australia, so I thought, we'll go to Canada. I'm so close. Got a work visa, and ended up spending 2 years there. Lived in Banff, and absolutely fell in love with even more of those outdoor activities. We're always doing something. We pretty much rode bikes all year, even in the winter. And then rode and snowboarded and started a bit of climbing and just mucked about. There was always stuff to do, so it was good.
Who are you living with over there? Is it
just some randoms? Just whatever. Just it's a ski town, so you have to share a room with a complete stranger and bunk in and try and make it work.
You kind of had a spot that was yours for a long period of time.
Yeah,
though?
I stayed in the same house the whole time I was over there, but people just come and go for the seasons and whatever.
Yeah, that'd be pretty cool fun. Hey,
oh, it was amazing. Yeah, we did some cool stuff, and I really liked being in a small town where once the sort of first season of transients come and go, you get to know the people that live there a lot better, and I really enjoyed that kind of small community where you could just go out and just get stuff done, and the guys there knew the area so well. We'd just go out and do some hilarious stuff. I'd started when I got there. I had a couple of different jobs, but at some point I managed to get a job in a ski shop. I got a job in the summer because it was a mountain bike shop, and sort of talked my way in there. And then got a bike, got a bike at cheap deals, of course, because you're working in the shop, and spent a summer learning to ride. And that was kind of my first ever downhill experience. Was got a semi-downhill bike and just started riding quite steep terrain. They weren't really race tracks like we're used to. They weren't high speed. It was just super steep and shaly and straight down. So,
But this was a designated bike park?
No,
Just
because
riding trails.
So Banff is inside the national park, and so technically most of the off-road stuff was illegal. So people would go and build stuff, but it was pretty kind of like Adelaide. Not really, back in the day, it wasn't manufactured trails or anything like that. It was pretty much just, scrape a little line in with your, maybe with a rake or whatever if you're lucky, and just go for it. And then those trails would develop pretty naturally. So, spent 2 summers there, and that was pretty much me trying to learn to mountain bike. I think I was in my mid-late 20s by then. Again, like then, once I was exposed to that, it just blew me away, the steep terrain. And everyone, incredible riders, they'd grown up in that area or grown up in that terrain. They were so skilled.
Any names, that come to mind, like good mates, good memories?
Oh, geez. Not really. Some, some French Canadian guys, JP, another guy, Chris, just locals, they weren't names. They didn't race, they were just
mates.
Local kids that lived in a town that could, rip the shit out of a bike. So,
You in contact with them still?
I have bumped into some of them when I've been back to Canada a little bit over the years, but probably not for 10 years now, no.
And so you've travelled overseas 5 or so years, and you've come back in your mid to late 20s?
Yeah, late 20s, I reckon.
Late 20s?
Yeah.
And back to Adelaide?
Came back to Adelaide. Had met my current wife. Had met Ange in the UK, and we were sort of like, well, what do we do? Our visas were running out, and we decided to come back to Adelaide. So I don't think it was ever meant to be. We hadn't really thought of it as coming back permanently, but we just sort of landed here and suss it out, figure out what to do with our lives after traveling, and what I knew was that I'm back. I know there's mountain biking here. Bumped into a couple of the guys that I had known back then, and ended up sort of within a few months of being back in Adelaide, went and got a job at JT's, and that's where I met Big Travie and Flanders and all the you goons.
And JT evolved over many years.
Yeah.
What part of the evolution did you come into?
Pretty, I guess, I reckon at the peak of it, but that's only because that's how we remember things, don't we? Wasn't the years that you and I were there? They must have been the golden years, right? Yeah. I reckon it was 2002 or 2003 maybe, and we were in the little shop on Pulteney Street, so next to the pizza shop, and then I think within about a year of me being there, we Trav lined up that humongous retail shop, sort of 100 metres up the road. And so, that was cool because then, got involved with everyone late at night, and we worked on the kitting the new shop out and getting that ready. So, those next few years, I reckon through to about 2006, I think it was about probably 3 or 4 years in the end. I can't quite remember. We had a great time. We had an absolute blast.
We did. Okay.
We won't talk about any of that.
We'll talk about some of it. Who were some of the people in that environment? It was Adelaide had a lot of unique people in the scene.
Yeah.
And there's bunches of them here, there, and everywhere. Who were some of them in that particular group?
Well, I think when I got there, in the shop, and I didn't really know anyone when I got there. Obviously, Travis, he was there. Flanders would have been in the workshop. I think Chad Gossett would have been in the workshop. Rick Hay, he was definitely a bit of a workshop character, if you remember old Ricko. Sammy Whittam would have been there as well. And then I'm not really sure who else was around at that time, but that was that core group, right?
And that was a big shop. I don't know.
Well,
if
that was even
in the shop.
That was even in the little shop. But yeah, again to the big shop. Holy cow! Yeah. No, I don't think I don't think. Well, Bicycle Express was pretty big, but JT's was definitely like, Travie was a bit of a visionary there, like trying to take the bike shop and turn it into more than just the grubby little corner bike shop. It was a huge facility. We had a lot of product. We had hundreds of bikes on the floor. He started that cafe next door where we had crazy Alex making coffees. So that was definitely something different from Adelaide, for Adelaide. I mean, at the time.
That was 2006-ish. Yeah,
I reckon it ended in about 2006 or 7. So end of 2006, I think I left.
A bike shop with its own little coffee shop in it.
Yeah,
look at
first of its kind that I knew of. Well, definitely in Adelaide.
And now it's the cornerstone of so many establishments. It was pretty forward thinking, I think.
Yeah, for sure. And it was a good time. Like that's where I like a lot of those guys I didn't know at the time, but had been a really big part of Adelaide Downhill from day one. Obviously the shop, JT's, have been a part of it from early days. And so I then just kind of fell in with this crowd who happened to like riding bikes and, did a few races back then, and that's kind of where a few races started for sure. But I think even by then a lot of them had sort of finished or tapering off on the racing. That had all happened
the
in
guys themselves.
Yeah, for sure.
But the shop was a big part
in the
of the
thick
scene.
of it. Yeah. I think the shop was still sponsoring, the series or sponsoring racing pretty heavily in Adelaide. So that went on for a few more years, yeah.
And you were finishing your study. You were still working at JT's. Is that when you're kind of finishing your studies? Is that
No,
right?
I finished my studies before I went overseas. I just, wasn't that interested in getting a full-time job at that point, so I thought I'd go and see a bit of the world. But I had finished and then just buggered off and came back and was into bikes. So I just got a job there and had, those 3 or 4 years of bike focus.
Retail.
Well, that was just the means to an end, right? I mean, we were in. When did you come along? 04?
It was about that time.
Something like that. You weren't there.
I think it was. Yeah,
you weren't there at the small shop, were you?
03, 04, something like that. Yeah, I was there for a couple of years. I think it was around that time.
At the big shop.
Double check. Yeah.
Pretty sure that's where I met you when you started working there, or I might have met you just before that.
And I finished about 2006.
Yeah. Okay. Yep. And that was, I mean, a lot of my closest friends now, including you, like that was from that era. Those 4 years were like one of those, we all have these different points in our life that are kind of like really pivotal in our lives. And for me, that was one of them because I was, around bikes, doing the thing I love, exploring, like learning more because I was pretty fresh to racing and all that. Hadn't really raced before. And everyone else was in the same boat. Everyone was just so focused on bikes.
Such a tight bunch.
It was a really tight bunch. We rode, we partied, we, had Saturday morning rides. I remember even seeing Zolly out on a road bike. Am I allowed to say that?
I don't remember that. I'm glad I forget that.
No, I think it might have happened once or twice. Yeah, for sure.
But it was. We'd ride in the morning and then we'd come to work.
Yeah.
And you'd work, hungover some nights and all the rest of it. But it was a great scene, and the customers would come into the shop and, they're buying their new stuff. It was a good scene. It was the mountain biking, and then the BMX scene was coming.
Yeah, that's
into that
it, because we had the BMX stuff down in the back corner, didn't we?
And so you had that community as well, and just seeing the young kids and they're stoked, and the stories of some of the kids with, the bits that they get to buy.
Oh yeah, for sure. But it was, I think at that time, that was probably like one of, if not the kind of downhill and off-road hub in Adelaide. And so the whole culture and scene around that shop was, that's why I say I reckon that surely was that and before, were those golden years. And kind of, I think the sport retail changed, people started to buy more online. And I think that idea of, the local shop, you'd go there, you'd hang out, you'd go on shop. Remember we used to go on shop rides with people and 30 customers had come along and we'd, go on big XC rides and that, that was
hang out
epic.
at the shop Friday night, and then come and have a beer with us after.
Yeah, for
culture.
sure.
You said before, culture. I think that's a great word.
Beer. Yeah, maybe
just
just
a
the
great
one.
culture.
It was a good culture for sure. The Saturday afternoon, what do we used to the beer bongs and the Ring of Fire and all that like.
Some good. So we'll get a group chat and we'll go into some
okay,
detail. When Trav gets here, we'll go into that. Okay, so you were doing retail into the mid 2000s, and then where did your life head to? What was happening in your personal life and your family life? What's happening at that stage?
Well, smack bang in the middle of 2000s, we had a kid, so that was pretty amazing. I think I was still at the bike shop then. I think I've got a picture of me holding him when he was about 6 weeks old at Dazzles at the state first ever. I might have been the first, but anyway, some state champs event I think it was, or a race at the end of 2005. So yeah, that was good. You know, I still trucked along doing what I was doing then. We took some time out to go back to Canada because Angie's Canadian, so we went back to Canada the next year for I think we were there 3 months. And, toured all around, met the family, or I'd met the family, but Carl got to meet the family. And sort of when we got back, I think maybe that year sort of I was, still mega keen to race because I'd come at it late, so I was more in the thick of it. But had a couple of injuries, kind of hurt my back a bit, and had a kid. And so I think your brain starts working a little bit differently at that point. Maybe I could argue it starts working, but... and so I sort of stopped racing at that point.
Before you stopped, who were some of the names in the scene that you were lining up? Who was at the start line in some of those events?
They were like a big, deep elite field back then, weren't they? Because, I mean, that in that era was Dave West and Yatesy, Marshy, Ryan Norton. I think you had finished up by then, but I know the Mogs were still doing the odd race. Who else would have been like up there? Don't know, but that was a fair few of them. There were sort of 6 or 8 pretty fast riders.
Line up there for a consistent weekend.
Yeah, week after week for sure.
And that was the Inside Line Mountain Bike Club.
Yeah.
Tell us some other early memories of the Inside Line Mountain Bike Club, whether it's events or personalities. What springs to mind?
I think I wasn't very involved in the community. I didn't get involved in any of that really. We rode and raced and that was kind of it. But I do know back then Wendy and Shane were kind of running the show, and I think they were probably running the show for most of the time that I was racing. I think that probably is the most part, yeah.
Any standout events, or what element of racing were you in it for?
I mean, fun. Like any of us, we want to race, we want to do as well as we can, but I certainly wasn't ever going to threaten anyone on the podium or anything like that, It was a bit of fun. I know we had a lot of fun off the bike, which maybe at times impacted our performance on the bike, but it's okay. It was all good fun.
That was part of it.
That was part of it for sure.
And so you're fading out of the cycling industry, retail side of things, and where do you start moving into? What are you doing?
I did a bit. It sort of happened at the same time. I'd moved out of retail. I think by then Travie had moved to Sydney. Bit of a change in hands at JT's in the city. Some of the guys had moved on. It certainly wasn't the same. It wasn't the same vibe. And I ended up, like I said, had a baby. Ended up out sort of looking at some engineering jobs by then, finally, 10 years or whatever after finishing uni. I thought it was probably time to try my hand at it.
Apply those skills that you learned.
Yeah. I did have to go back and do a little bit of study because, a lot of water had passed under the bridge in 10 years. So, but it was good, that was a really fun time in my life. And then, things obviously move, you're a dad, we bought a house, and, you sort of get on that pathway, and there's a lot of that interesting stuff happening, and we spent a lot of years doing really cool stuff with the kids. We did a lot of camping, got the kids got the kids climbing, and a lot of the mountain bikers then also were into rock climbing, which I found easier to do with little kids. We could take them to the crag and wrap them up under a tree, that sort of thing. And pretty much focused for a lot of years on family life, which was awesome. We did a lot of stuff together. It was great.
So you had a son, and then
we had another son.
There?
No, then we had another son. I was just out of the bike shop, I think, then when we had Leith. So yeah, two awesome little kids, who are now big kids, adults almost.
Happens quick, doesn't it?
It happened really quick.
And
do you find when you were like, you think to yourself, oh wow, it's going to be a long road. I've got kids forever, right? And then suddenly they're 18, and you're standing looking backwards and going, oh, fuck, where did that go?
Well, my oldest is about to turn 22.
No shit.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah.
Well, I think that must be about as long as we've known you, I think, because I think she was
just,
pretty new when I met you.
I think a couple of days you come to our wedding, I think. Yeah. You just come out of the hospital to the wedding.
I think I was just out of the hospital to your wedding, yeah. But I meant Zahn, yeah.
Oh, Zani, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, well, yeah.
22.
Yeah. Engineering, your study, your university. What uni did you go to? What was uni life like?
Uni was a hoot, actually. Yeah. Pretty focused on, study was a lot of work, but I, because I had that, leg injury from motos in first year uni, I sort of ended up, had to have a bit of time off and sort of missed part of the year. So I ended up doing a lot more of a blend, instead of just, a lot of people go through in 4 years. I ended up sort of going part-time. Then I lived out of home for some of it, and took a few extra years. So when I finally, got a job, it was obviously a lot later. But that was good to, put those skills, put that learning into place, and try and do something there.
And what job did you find yourself into?
I was always drawn to energy efficiency and a little bit probably environmental mindset. So I worked for one company which was to do with how houses were built and how efficient they were from an energy perspective, and that was cool. But it sort of kind of hit a ceiling on what you could learn there. I mean, it wasn't a builder, but that was interesting to learn about that, and then sort of carried that on and had an opportunity to jump into industrial energy efficiency. So we would go out to the biggest kind of energy consuming factories or sites in Australia, work out how they were doing what they were doing, and try and reduce their energy footprint and be more efficient. And I think we did that for about 6 or 8 years, something like that.
Can you give us a specific example on
the kind of factories? Well, car factories, minerals processing. We went to Whyalla. We'd go to the smelter at Port Pirie. I'd spent a heap of time at the Ford plant in Broadmeadows in Victoria, in Melbourne.
So, for example, Whyalla, what specifically were you trying to achieve there?
Well, probably another good example, I might use a different one, is, and it's something, I never had thought of as being a big energy consuming activity, but, when they, on an industrial scale, when you malt barley to turn it into, so that you can use it for beer, that uses actually a shitload of energy because they heat it up a little bit and then they dry it out. And so in that drying process, you use a ton of energy to put sort of warm air over, I don't know what it was, 150 tonne of grain to bubble it through and dry it out. So we'd do things around how they controlled the temperature of it, how they controlled the fans, that sort of thing, to use basically, and I think would have been gas, use less gas and make that process more efficient. And there were some examples where you might be saving, hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars worth of fuel of different types. So that was cool. That exposed me to a lot of different industries. I learned a lot about different processes, and so it was always interesting. You'd go somewhere new and you'd turn up and I don't know anything about your process, so tell me all about it. I need to know everything. How does it run? How do you control it? what's the kind of thermodynamics behind it, and learn enough about it to then suggest a few changes in how they controlled it or how they ran it back to the people that ran the place.
So you're taking their statistics and analysing that information.
Yeah.
Are you also producing tools to measure and calculate stuff, or
Well,
those tools already in place?
No, it's mostly about collecting the data they had to run the plant. You know, like all these factories have got sensors and different instrumentation all over the place, and so we would basically collect all of that data and, you know, build models in Excel. You know, pretty basic tooling. You know, no kind of software. Just build it all in Excel and figure out how it ran. Look at the maths behind it, and you know, tweak it and model it and suggest some changes. And sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. But we got to play with a lot of cool processes and you know, do a few sort of trial installations and try and make some change.
And so, where has you still with you're working for the same company now? Like who are you?
No, that sort of ended. But what we did end up with is we realised that in mining there was a lot of fuel being consumed. Like those massive trucks just consume, you know, absolutely bucket loads of fuel. I think those big trucks, when they're flat out, I think there's something like 500 litres an hour of fuel they consume. So yeah, you got 40 of them. So we went in thinking like looking at mining.
Hang on, I'll just take a minute to stop. Think of 500
litres per hour
for one truck,
for one truck.
one vehicle.
Yeah,
the ones that you see when the wheel is taller than the person. And
like I think, you know, on some of the trucks I sort of look into the hub. You know, that's about my height where they're at. So they're big trucks. I think they're sort of 250, 300 tonne when they're empty, and then another, you know, 250 tonne of dirt in them after that.
Big numbers. I'm not going to think too much more
It's a lot of
yeah.
It's a lot of cost and a lot of fuel. So we kind of went there on that energy efficiency trip, you know, like what can we do better here type thing, and then realised that there was a massive opportunity in mining around how they run the diggers and the trucks, literally how they drive them. Are they being mechanically kind to them? Are they as productive as they could be, or are they wasting time? Are they not filled up as much as they could be? So there's a lot of variables in that. So we ended up in that company focusing on, well, not focusing on energy, but the broader, you know, energy, yes, but also the productivity and bit of safety and basically, you know, helping them optimize how they use those massive fleets.
And that's still where you're at now?
Yeah, I'm still there now. It's been like 10 years.
And where has that work taken you? Around the world?
Yeah, it has. I mean, we have no customers in South Australia. We've got a bunch in Queensland, bunch in Western Australia. I mean, over the years, like I said, even with the first company, we got to travel to a lot of different sites. So work sites in, you know, Indonesia, PNG, South Africa, Zambia. We've got other sites elsewhere in Africa, but I haven't personally been to all of them. But yeah, for a lot of years there, I, you know, travelled a reasonable amount for sure.
So you've travelled to PNG, Papua New Guinea, to implement a tool on a specific truck or a vehicle. Are you putting a tool on their vehicle? What are you?
Well, that was
doing?
that site was I think more actually looking at their processing plant.
Okay.
I think that was a gold site looking at their processing plant. But now, like
in terms of you create equipment and put monitoring equipment on.
Yeah, it just is like a data collector. You know, basically collects all the data from what the truck is doing, from engine data and gearbox data and all that sort of stuff. And then we use that to figure out what it's doing, look at all the trucks together, look at how it all sequences together, and yeah, it does collect a bunch of data off of each machine.
You're plugging a computer into
basically it's a little computer. Yeah. Miniature computer, and then it collects data from the machine.
And you've built that computer specifically to gain data? Is that right?
We've built bits of it. Some of it's off the shelf. I mean, why build it if you can buy it? So a bunch of it is off the shelf, and then some of it, we have built and developed. But most of I think the unique stuff, the smart stuff that has been done, yes, we've had to adapt the hardware to that environment, but actually most of it has been around what we do with that data, And that's not me. I'm not a software engineer. I don't get involved in all of that side of it. But that's really where the smarts are. Like how the software engineers have managed to aggregate that data and basically analyze it automatically. It's all done on the cloud. We have now, I think we have like 600 trucks basically around the globe feeding data into the cloud, and we do all of that analytics pretty automated, and then sending out reports and websites and dashboards and whatever to the mining companies so they can make better decisions on a day-to-day basis. Previously they might control their mine with a bloke sitting in a Hilux with a radio. Now systems like ours allow them to see everything they need to see some results, and it kind of can tell them, hey, move those trucks over there, change how you do this, don't drive like that, redesign your road, whatever. Pretty automated.
Put your headphones on, because I'm recording this whole way through anyway.
You're going to have to chop that shit out. We're just talking shit, so come on. Be kind.
We're back. A quick adjustment. Let me reset a few things here. Very professional, very semi-professional.
Very semi-professional. There we go.
Sorry.
Could line up the Volatile logo with the beer better this time, right?
Much better.
I'm learning.
We just had a quick break. We were just wrapping up your work environment, your engineering workforce. Where is that at the minute, and where are we going to head to from here?
Where's it going to head to? Well, that company's been quite a blast. I've been there since day one, when there was 3 people in someone's shed. So that's been quite a journey over 10 years. We now have about 50 employees. So that's been wild, like heading out into completely uncharted territory initially, not really knowing what we were doing, but just like, we're committed, we're going to have a go, we're going to see what we can do with it. That's strength to strength. We got, like I said, we've got about 50 odd employees now, and just looking to, keep growing and keep making, more improvements to what we do and what our customers do. So yeah, it's awesome.
And so, in addition to doing that, you are also the president of the Inside Line Mountainbike Club.
Yeah.
I'm sure you don't have much spare time.
Not a lot at the moment. Look, I'm super lucky that the family support that, because it's been a bit of work, but I think I kind of feel like it's the natural progression. First Kale, then Leith, got into mountain bikes. They'd done a little bit of BMX when they were younger, and I think Kale got to a certain point where the kids get a bit more serious and the fucking elbows are out and they're pushing each other down, sort of thing. I think he was like, it's not for me. And I think he was about 10, and we got him out on a little, bottom of the range giant hardtail, and he was just like, that's it. I'm never looking back. Just absolutely loved the same thing that you and I do. Like the freedom of being out there and riding and all that. So I feel like it's a natural progression. We got involved, dragged me back into mountain bikes as well, which has been awesome, to get back on the bike instead of just trail riding. But it feel like it was a bit of a natural progression as he got into it. Then Leith as well, we got more and more involved. And as they got older and probably didn't need as much kind of a hands-on help at the races, then I don't know, it's just me. I like, stuff's going on. I want to help. I want to, help the club do its thing. And so I slowly started to get involved in little bits and pieces here and there. And then that was kind of just sort of suddenly, next thing I know, I ended up, president this year. I was pretty involved last year, but we spent a lot of time away. So I didn't think it would be fair to try and take that on then and then be gone for half the year. So did that this year. Takes up a bit of time, but I really enjoy it. I really like seeing the races go really well. I really like the club putting on, we put on amazing events, and I'm not saying that I don't, but it's an incredible group of volunteers and other mums and dads that are passionate about downhill racing and seeing kids have a good time and get to experience awesome events. And that is really fulfilling, you know. I really enjoy that.
Who are some of those people that probably wouldn't normally get a mention? You know who they are. Who are a few of the people, if you get a chance to a quick shout out to some
definitely.
people?
I mean, it's always a risk of doing that because I'll forget
Yeah,
people.
yeah.
I'll miss people. But, I mean, it is pretty hard to go past, you know, some of the guys that have been in and around the club for years, like Joff Meta, who was vice president this year, I think finally after literally a dozen years or more. I mean, he was back in the day. You guys, I think, you know, I don't know if that was with you, but I know Marshy and those boys and Homer.
Yeah, who go next door to Gump Track.
Exactly,
yeah.
the Gum Track when he was there, for sure.
Forever.
So, and he's been involved with the club all these years, racing and vice president. So, you know, he's done a ton for the club over the years. His daughter is starting to race a bit, so he's going to step back and kind of help her, which is amazing. Another guy, John O'Brien, who I think he's probably been around the club for maybe 8 or 10 years. I'm not entirely sure. Has worked, you know, a lot behind the scenes, and just, you know, makes shit happen. He is like touches everything in the club and makes a lot of stuff go. So he's been incredible. And then, you know, one of the dads whose son is kind of 19, 20, again, like could easily have probably packed up and left, but Mark Twining does a lot of work around the transport, and he has made that whole side of the racing work like clockwork. And you know what it's like, so if you're at a race as a rider, like what is your experience? What do you take away from riding in that weekend? You want to see a good track that you had a good time on, and you want to get lots of runs in. You know, you don't want to be standing in a queue all day. And so he's done an incredible job making that shit work like clockwork.
How many people like you have a state round, an average round? It's a Saturday, Sunday event.
Yeah.
There's a lot more time behind that, but how many people are physically there on the day? The riders don't know. How many people do you reckon are helping on that on a Saturday? The day
I have
before
worked it
race
out
day?
because, like, yeah, we've tried to kind of plan out what like the volunteer needs are, and if we have an event, you know, 2023, a lot of our events we were selling out at 240 riders. I think we peaked at Wollonga at, I think we nearly got it to 300. And so by the time you have, you know, marshals, you need 10 or 12 marshals with a couple of helpers, and you need them, you know, 2 shifts on Saturday, 3 shifts on Sunday. You need people to help load the bikes, maybe someone to help unload. You need people in the caravan, people running rego, people running the timing system top and bottom. So by the time you do that, there's like literally hundreds of kind of person shifts, you know, for every weekend. And so we really rely a lot on, I mean, it's a volunteer run club, everyone there, everyone on the committee, everyone's got jobs and other family life. So it's a real volunteer run organisation is what we have to do. You know, we don't have the money, we don't pay people. We do everything we can to try and keep the entry costs as low as possible. And that means we, you know, it is completely volunteer.
Do you have enough volunteers?
No, you never have enough volunteers.
If someone's listening to this and they're sitting on the fence and they go, oh, actually, I'm here watching my lad, I've brought my kid out, I'm sitting in the car, could they approach the club to offer their services somehow? Like, is it a bit embarrassing? Is it hard for people to come forward and offer to volunteer?
I hope not. Like, if it's hard for people to stick their hand up, then I think as a club, then we're definitely doing something wrong, right? We want it to be easy for people to come along and just do a bit of something. So it doesn't matter what it is, you know, just come and help pack up, come and help take the bunting down at the end. And slowly, you know, people get involved. And I could see that there are some bits of it that look complex, or I've never done that before, and I'm worried about marshalling. What if a kid crashes in front of me or something like that? So I kind of get it. You know, it can be a bit scary, but yeah, what we really want to do is break down some of those barriers, and you know, people just need to come and talk. And we spruik it. You know, we want people to come over and get involved, and I guess that to me is also like from a community spirit perspective, you know, like your kids are racing, they're into it. You know, it's so lucky for me, who is also super passionate about riding, that both of my kids have been into it, you know. So I count that as lucky. Why wouldn't I want to get involved and be there with them and see them through that and share that with them?
I know when I was involved in the club in the early days, and at the time there'd be a club meeting at a pub. Everyone would come there, you'd have a schnitzel and you'd talk, and everyone would share and help. I don't know. I'm guessing maybe it's a bit more difficult for the community to come together in an environment where they can, oh shit, I'm an electrician and you need the power connector. Oh, actually, I run a tyre repair shop. I can fix the tyres on the caravan. I don't know. Is there...
A bit of that still happens, for sure. Like, you know, I mean, over the last, I don't know, 5 years, we've gone sort of before my involvement, the club went and replaced all of those super old trailers with, you know, quite modern, new front wheel hanging type trailers that, you know, pretty fancy trailers. And we now have like 4x22 bike trailers. And they're worth a lot of money. And so we've got to look after them. But, you know, between that and the caravan, you know, there's yet another dad, you know, Mikhail, and one of the other dads, Paul, work really well behind the scenes, and they look after them. You know, they check the bearings, they do whatever maintenance is required, and keep them running. So, you know, for sure,
that's the sort of stuff I imagine in the day back in the day. Those people were probably easier to filter to the front. Today, that's my guess.
You reckon?
I don't know, because maybe everyone thinks someone else is going to do it. I don't know. If the job's getting done, it often comes back to the few people doing all the work. You know, so if there is public service announcement, if you're in the Inside Line Mountain Bike Club, and put your hand up.
There's always room for more volunteers, absolutely.
Offer to help your services. You know, it is a fantastic club, and 30 years now.
I know, it's incredible, isn't it?
30 years this club's been running.
We still keep hearing, and I can't find any evidence to the contrary, but possibly, you know, the longest running gravity orientated mountain bike club in Australia.
I think possibly even the world, because it was a downhill mountain bike. It wasn't just a mountain bike club. Yeah. It was specified as downhill mountain bike.
A lot of the like quite big, more general cycling clubs in Victoria and that, you know, they hold XC races and road, and they're a much broader cycling club. But we've been focused on gravity, you know, since day one.
Pretty rich history here in South Australia.
Yeah, for a little town without much altitude and all of that. I think the club over the years, with all those, you know, amazing people that have been involved for all those years, have produced great racing, you know, great riders. And I just think back, Marshy was telling me as well, like way back in the 90s, like the whole reason for that club for the club really coming together was to be able to have a club so that you'd then be able to be allowed to kind of race nationals and things like that. And so, you know, that's really pushed the sport and produced great events. And it's a funny thing. Like every time I traveled a lot to races over the last few years, you know, in about sort of 2022, 21, 22, 23 sort of thing. And everywhere we'd go, like people would know, Inside Line puts on the sickest events, you know, and we'd get Victorians coming over here and they're just like, fuck, these events are so well run. You know, I mean, sure, it's not Mount Buller. We don't have that kind of terrain, but we make do, and the events run really well. And I think a big focus now is there's just to make sure we're still having fun, you know?
And so you got some plans for I mean, we're going to put this podcast out in the next few weeks, but you're actually planning a big event, like a 30-year event for the Inside Line Mountain Bike Club?
We're only going to turn 30 once. So we have our annual end of the year presentations, and so like, you know, series awards and all that stuff. But this year we're because it's our 30 years, we're going to have a 30th kind of birthday party and dual slalom. And I wanted to do that because, you know, when I look back at like the club's history, like really that's where it all started. Like, you know, those Marble Hill dual slaloms back in sort of 94 and 95. We just want to recreate that. It's not going to be too serious, you know. We're not going to like put too much work into a track, but it's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to do some silly stuff. We'll have to have like some longest jump contests and a bar drag rut, or might even be a little volatile jump happening. You know, we'll see what happens.
And so when and where?
We're going to do that on the 9th of November down at Wollonga. So at Ashley Hills Estate, which is Paul Giles and his family's property. I don't think there's any place that's more fitting to have a 30th, because Paul has been supporting the club with races. I think we raced there apparently in 94. So he's literally been down the Fire Road. Yeah. So we might even have a special
Fire Road race.
We won't talk about
that. Explain to people, someone's not watching this, how would you find this event and why should you go there?
Well,
how would you driving? You're driving the freeway. How does someone get in the car? You're not a mountain biker. We go, hang on, there's a 30th celebration for the best mountain bike club in the world. How do I get to this? How do I see this slalom, this crazy day fun thing?
I mean, like everything, it's obviously all, you know, on socials, and that's how the club communicates with the community these days. So I just put a flyer up last night for the event. But it's basically on that kind of hills face that wraps around from the town of Wollonga.
I'm in a car. I'm in the city. Yeah. I'm in the CBD in Adelaide.
Get on the Southern Expressway.
Give me some more directions.
Get on the Southern Expressway, and then get off at the Wollonga exit. And from there, it's a place called Louds Hill Road. In Wollonga, it's about 5 minutes or 10 minutes from that freeway exit at Ashley Hills Estate. And yeah, we'll be down there on Saturday, the 9th of November. I think we'll have the track open and people can just ride and muck about from sort of 10 o'clock in the morning.
Sounds like a lot of fun.
It's going to be a lot of fun. It's the last weekend of the year we can have a bonfire, so there's possibly a bit of a bonfire action happening later on. We'll have a barbecue and a few beers, a few home brews from Paul on the deck. And hopefully we're going to get a few of the old boys out. I have managed to reach out to a few of them. And if we're lucky, we might even put on a retro riders category for some of the original races.
Yeah, so if you're listening, this podcast is going to the older crew at the moment. That's the people we're talking to. So guys and girls, if you're sitting at home on Saturday, November 9th,
we're slowly spreading the word. Marshy's spreading the word.
Nothing better to do. Go for a drive, go to Wollonga and go and hang out, see the guys, catch up with some old crew, have a few laughs. Whether you bring your bike or not probably doesn't matter. It sounds like it's going to be a pretty fun day.
It should be a pretty fun day, yeah, for sure. It's going to be a good kind of end to a big year.
Just cutting back to the Inside Line Club, and we're talking about South Australia. Like, it's a state that doesn't have much hills, but we've produced some pretty good riders. We got a young bloke that did all right just recently.
Yeah, some bloke called Troy won a race.
Yeah.
I know, isn't that incredible? I mean, obviously, you know, him and Connor pushed each other, and you know, I wasn't as involved. That was kind of a bit in between when I stopped racing and when I sort of got back involved with the kids, was when a lot of that happened. But yeah, it is incredible that I mean, you're going to have good riders turn up for sure, but obviously, you know, Troy and Connor both popped up at the same time, both incredible riders, and pushed each other. We had a great national series back then, which I'm sure helped them develop their racing. And they, I mean, holy cow, they've both been on the circuit for 10 years. And yeah, to have Troy come back from a break and blast straight on to winning Mont Saint Anne is really something.
All right,
but it's not just those two guys. I mean, you would have some names from back in the day. I mean, obviously Ben Whitlock was a bloody good rider, and even when I was at JT's, Marshy went over and did a Norber or two in North America, didn't he?
It's great to share all the names around, and with a bit of respect, I mean, your young lad has done pretty well for himself. You know, I don't think this is for the younger generation, but you got to be pretty proud as a dad. Tell us a little bit about, before you got into the Inside Line, you're obviously taking your boys to the races. They're obviously into it. How much time does that involve, and what's involved in getting a couple of young boys to mountain bike racing events?
Initially, not much. It was easy, you know. like I said, they'd done a little bit of BMX, and I think that wasn't for them, but it gave them good skills. And we just started coming along to some of the events. And back then the club did an awesome thing where, like, I didn't have a license or anything anymore, but somehow, I don't know how it worked, you could just pay a few bucks and do some shuttles on Saturday and then not race. And so that was epic to come out. I mean, I think it was only Kale back then, and start riding with him. I think he did his first downhill on that giant hardtail, and when he was, I don't know, back end of 10 years old, maybe still 10 years old, in I don't know where it was. Oh, it was at Eagle, actually. Yeah. And never looked back. Loved it. And so, it was easy. Like I said, I didn't really help out a lot with the club. I was just, at that time, one of those dads that turned up and raced. And it was easy. I loved being there. Being at the races is epic. I still love being at mountain bike races. I love seeing people go through that racing process. I love seeing people, like, that mental process of trying to extract every bit that they can out of themselves, out of a track, out of the bike, tweak the suspension. Have we got the right tyre pressure? Like, it, good race runs are like just a...
That's the engineer in you.
I don't know. That's the OCD. I don't know. But I just love all those bits that come together to make like a perfect race run, or, at least a good one. So I love being at the races. So it was never hard for me to be there, what were the races once a month, practice when we could, take the boys out for runs whenever I could kind of get away with it. And like I said, all three of us boys are so lucky because, Ange has been mega supportive of that the whole time. She'd come and drive us runs and I would get to ride with Kale, and then, I don't know if you remember, but like when he started getting old enough, he'd come out trail riding with us, until he was leaving us in his dust. But to me, it's like we're all here for the same reason. We just love riding bikes, and it didn't matter what age you were. You got your son riding with you. You'd be out riding, and other dads would bring their sons. And there are people in the club now that are my age that are off riding with the the under 19s or the young elites, because they're still there for the same reason. We just love slapping turns and just riding and getting a smile on.
Such a cool bonding experience.
Such a good bonding experience, yeah.
And you're not thinking about whatever the problems of the day are, or
they're gone.
They don't exist on the trails, do they?
Oh, especially at our age, mate. Because if we're not concentrating on what's going on the trail, then we're in trouble. So yeah, we got to pay attention and block out the rest. So yeah, no, it's been good, and yeah, like you said, over the years, that was a bit of a tangent there, but anyway, over the years, he really enjoys the race process. Carl really loves racing at the end of the day, and is still just like, I just want to go ride. I just want to do laps. I want to have fun. And at some point, he decided, hey, I kind of want to give it a go.
And you had the opportunity to race overseas for a bit. Last 2 seasons, is it?
Well, 3 actually. Yeah.
Tell us a bit about that.
In I don't know what year, but when he was under 17s, I think he sort of a bit unexpectedly kind of got a fastest time of the day at Eagle, beat all the elites. And it sort of like shocked him a bit, I think. I mean, he'd been going right. And then so he's like, right, I'm going to give it a go. And he was, I say fortunate, but obviously well deserved. But got on the Junior Worlds team in first year under 19 2 years ago. So I guess that's 22. So we went over. The world champs were at Leger in France, which was a mind-boggling experience. And amazing just to be there at those World Cups. Things that we've watched on videos for years, when the once a year season video came out and you finally got hold of it and could watch all the races, that sort of thing. So to be there was just incredible. Did the world champs there, went and did a World Cup. His kind of first World Cup then was Volatile, like arguably one of the gnarliest places around, and still to that day doing track walk with him in as a first year junior. You grow up with your kids and you're worried about, are they going to crash or are they going to be okay? But, you know, they get to the point where, you know, I know they know where they're at, right? And it's not so much of a worry if there's a feature or something, you know, are you going to make the right call for whatever's right for you at the day? You're going to jump it or you're not or whatever. But going back to Volatile was like back to being in like terrified dad mode, like, fucking hell, I'm not going to let my kid race down this, you know, but he absolutely loved it, you know, really loved it. Then we went and did what are they called? A European Downhill Cup, one of the IXSs, the week after in Pila in Italy. He did really well, like nearly came pretty close to getting on the podium there. And that just like absolutely lit a fire under him. Came back, did the national series. I think he was pretty much undefeated as a junior at national racing for that year. And then we kind of faced the decision of like, well, you know, shit, if this is what you want to have a go, what can we do to facilitate that? So I was a bit late on the planning because it kind of came together a bit late notice, but ended up sort of deciding that probably the best way to do it for his second junior year was to actually start a team. So I started a UCI mountain bike team, had him and some other, you know, there was a couple of other mums and dads that their kids wanted to get over to Europe and race, and we went over there together, and I think in the end we had kind of 6 riders, came and went, did their own thing. Some of them were older, you know, the elites, they already knew what to do, and, you know, really for them it was just, you know, a group to hang out with. At least then we could get a pit. So
there was no Australia team. Many years gone back, they would take an Australian team to race
World
these
Cups?
events. I'm not sure. Did they?
I don't know.
Did Australia have their own, like a junior worlds team? Like, is this?
Oh no, it's still. I mean, yeah, definitely had a junior worlds team.
But this is a bit more privateering.
Yeah, this was just a privateer team. But I mean, we could have tried to go as a privateer. But if you did sign up to be a team, then you get a pit space, you get guaranteed entry. You know, you can wear your own kit. You don't have to wear the Aussie jersey. So for sponsors and that, it's better.
Sounds expensive.
Yeah, it was pretty expensive, but once in a lifetime opportunity. So,
okay, what does an experience like that? What's some of the logistics and some of the costs involved in trying to achieve something like that? To take you took a group of riders across to race for how long?
It varied. Some of them only did a couple of rounds. We did,
months?
Yeah, a few months. Kale and I were away for 4 months, and we did from round 1 all the way through the whole Euro rounds. We didn't go to Mont-Saint-Anne oh no, sorry. Back then there was 2 races in the US that year, so we missed the last 2, but we did all the races in Europe, and we were away. Did the Euro races, World Champs, and then came home.
And if you were to put a price ticket on that experience, what roughly do you reckon that would cost you?
I stopped counting.
A bit scary.
It was a bit scary. I could have bought a pretty nice car, I reckon.
Yeah.
But
I know it's worth every cent.
It
but
was,
do you know roughly? To give your child that experience would be, I think, most
I don't know.
Dream.
Yeah, and we did it pretty cheap, like as cheap as we could do it. You know, like you do little things that add up. Like 4 months of cooking instead of eating out actually is a shitload of money.
Yeah,
you know, we shared a van, we scrimped and saved, but it's an expensive sport for sure. Not so much the sport at that point, but the travel. You know, just being there, getting all your shit to Europe, traveling. You know, taking time off work. So yeah, it was an expensive outing for sure.
Yeah,
but one that I definitely don't regret.
You cherish that forever.
Yeah, like
and I'm sure you and your whole family would.
What dad gets to take the kids to Europe and go racing a bunch of World Cups.
And
you know,
have, and just gone over, and
Leith came over. Yeah, he loved it.
Yeah.
He got to race a French National Cup as well. That race was fucking mental. There's 500 riders or something like that. It was absolutely huge. So yeah, he got to race in Châtel, and yeah, really enjoyed it.
Get to that with your family.
Yeah, it was good.
Killer.
It was good, but it was again like you're at the races. You know, you're at World Cups. Even though we were just the dirtbag privateers, just to be a small part of that was incredible.
All right. In all that time travelling over there, I'm sure everything just went smoothly and everything worked.
For sure.
At any point, did anything go wrong?
Oh,
that you
shitloads
can
of stuff went
remember?
wrong, you know.
What was one or two of the worst parts of that experience, if you don't mind sharing? What really peeved you? What really...
I don't know about. I mean, yeah, like you said, there's good and bad in every kind of experience like that. You know, there's little dumb things like you get to the track and, okay, where's your body armor, you know, and then you almost miss practice because you haven't got your body armor. We go back to the room and get it. Little things like that. But, I mean, that year the weather was good. It was a real journey. Like, it took a while, took a couple of races for him to qualify into a final. And then from then it was kind of like he just built and built and built. So it was, from that perspective, it was always on and up. You know, it was an improvement throughout the whole year. We didn't know what we were doing most of the time, you know, like it was hard to get information and figure out what do I have to do to even be able to register a team, get over there, how do I register for the races, squeezing in the pits, you know, you've never done it before, we've never been to those places. That was sometimes stressful, but it's just kind of part of it. It wasn't like a regret, it was just hard work. And then, yeah, spending that long away from home with, at that time, people didn't really know that well. You know, I'd met them around the races and were like, oh, we're all here for the same reason, you know, it's good. But obviously, you know, like anything, nerves get frayed, tensions arise over the course of, you know, 4 months being in a van with people. But I kind of feel like that's pretty normal part. I mean, if you're at work for 4 months, you'd have the same thing, wouldn't you?
I mean, you go out for a weekend with your best mates and you get on each other's nerves.
No, we don't.
In each other's pocket for
we
24 hours.
We went to Bright for 3 days. I'm sure we didn't have any tense moments, did we?
In fact, 3 days is different to
4 months.
Yeah.
Oh, look, it's just one of those. It is a high pressure environment, you know. Like I think it's easy to forget that it's like it is the pinnacle of our sport. And with super professional athletes and massive budgets and all of that on millions of dollars of budgets. And so the pressure, even if you're not like feel the pressure of that kid really wants to perform, it's like the whole scene. Everyone is feeling the pressure. Like everyone is there to do well and beat each other, you know, even though it's a good, you know what it's like in downhill, competitors are still mates and all that. So from that perspective, it's good, but it's still a pressure cooker for sure. And that means that, you know, shit can get hard sometimes. That's just part of it.
Outside of bike riding, shit getting hard. Not literally, you know, that's constipation. Is that? I think
your Metamucil's not going so well, is it, Zolly?
But there's. I know there's guys listening to this that everyone doesn't have good days. We have good and bad days.
Yeah.
If you can appeal to someone that's having a bad day today and maybe share an experience where something's got you down outside of bikes, like life has got you down, Jamie. Could you share a minute when life got you down? Just family, relationships, you know, loved ones. I don't know.
Oh, wow. We all have different like tough patches with our relationships and partners. And, I mean, I'm sure like anyone, you know, we've had, if I think about relationships, I've had pretty good relationships with friends. You know, I don't really think I've had too many falling outs with people that I don't call friends anymore. I probably could count them on half a hand, you know what I mean? Definitely you have rough patches with your partner. And, you know, you just have to remember, for me, I'm sure, you know, people have their own way through this, but for me, it's about realizing that, like, yep, sure, I'm might be because I'm working too much, which I've done a lot of over the last few years, and for me, that's probably where a lot of my difficulties that I cause on other people come from. Is, you know, over the years of working in this business, have worked too much. Right, it's just one of those things. And so that causes a lot of stress. You know, you're not pitching in when you should pitch in. You're not, you know, there as much for the kids, or you're not doing your share of cooking or whatever. And that certainly causes a bit of tension at my house from time to time. And I've certainly got to own that. But for me, like on that relationship basis, you just got to remember like the big picture and what you're there for and who you're there with. And if I just keep coming back to that and remember, you know, these are all just small shitty details. We work on them. We keep making them better. But for me, it's about remembering the big picture of what we're working on together. So, yeah, and I think that applies whether it's your home life, your work life, you know, whatever. Try and apply that everywhere.
Yeah, nice. Well, I think we're maybe coming to the end. I've really enjoyed this again.
Yeah, it's a good chat.
Each time I do this, I have a great time, and it's going to get better. We'll be able to talk for longer. The cameras are going to last for longer, and I won't be as distracted by
less batteries. We can drink more beer
and all the rest of it. But if you were to end this on a positive note, messages in life, takeaways in life, if you could pick someone up with some good words, how would you?
I would just think it's maybe a bit related to what I just said. Just kind of remember what makes you happy, you know, figure out, and hopefully by now we've figured out what makes us happy. And I know that I've been through periods where it's been so flat out, I don't ride my bike, and I turn into a pretty horrible person sometimes if I don't have that release. And every now and then you don't ride for months, and then you go for a big long pedal, and then you're like focused, you're clear, you're in the air, you know. So I think that figuring out what your strategy is to kind of let the steam off, you know, recenter yourself. For some people, it's to go surfing and get in the ocean. Some people, you know, like us, it's get on two wheels and just feel the flow of a bike around trails or whatever. And some people, I don't know, garden or whatever. But I think it's really important to understand that at the core of all the other temporary bullshit that's in your life is to get back to like what actually makes you, you know, content and happy. And then just make sure you get back to that every now and then. And that's something that I definitely a goal, is do that more. The basics, you know, it's the simple things in life, isn't it, Zol, you know?
Easy to say, hard to do.
I know it is, but at least if you half know what it is, you can do it occasionally.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Awesome. Love the conversation. Thanks, Jamie.
No worries, Zol.
Thank you.
Thanks to see you.
Cheers.
Cheers, mate.
Boom.
Boom. Done?
That's done. We're a wrap.
Excellent. That did go quick, didn't it?